news that is developing just right now, we wish to announce, sadly, that Jesus of Nazareth, that is Jesus, the son of Joseph, Jesus bin Yusuf of Nazareth, is dead. This death occurred early this afternoon, and the cause of it was crucifixion. The Roman authorities did proceed with the order to crucify Jesus, and certification was made of his death through the most crude method of putting a spear on his side. It was then believed that there will soon follow a burial incident. Our field reporter, Pekuzi, has been following up the events of the day and was able to file the following report about the events leading to the crucifixion and the eventual death. We do warn viewers that some of the images that they will see might be a bit unsettling.
Today marks one of the most poignant moments in human history, a day that shall forever be etched in our hearts. The day began with the high priests and the Pharisees and the religious leaders and elite of Jerusalem conspiring against a man named Jesus of Nazareth, seeing him as a threat to their power and authority. Their plot against Jesus came to a climax as he was brought before Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor of Judea, for trial. Pilate, upon hearing the accusations against Jesus, found no fault in him and attempted to release him. However, the priests, driven by their own agendas, incited the crowd to demand the release of Barabbas, a notorious criminal, instead of Jesus. The issue of Barabbas divided the crowd, and tensions rose as Pilate ordered that Jesus be beaten as punishment for his supposed crimes. And the beating was indeed done in such a brutal and inhumane way, with the Roman soldiers flogging and whipping Jesus with callous indifference and malice, putting a crown on his head and beating him to a point of near death. Despite Pilate's reluctance to put Jesus to death, the priests and the crowd continued to demand for his crucifixions. And they went ahead to steer the crowd to be able to demand that Pilate actually puts him to death. Fearing a riot, Pilate gave to their demands, and Jesus was led to crucifixion. The procession to Golgotha, the site of crucifixion, was a harrowing experience for Jesus. He was forced to carry his cross for a time, but it was too much for him, and eventually a man named Simon of Cyrene was made to bear the burden for him. The journey was even made more painful, with him being mocked, being whipped, being spat on, and constantly being jeered by the crowd time and again and again. And when they reached Golgotha, Jesus was nailed on the cross. His flesh was pierced by the nails of the Roman soldiers. The agony he endured was excruciating, and yet all he remained steadfast in his faith. One striking detail of the crucifixion was the sign that was placed above Jesus' head. The sign was written in 3 languages, that is Latin, Greek, and Hebrew, and it read, "Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews." It was a poignant reminder of the differing perspectives of the Roman authorities, the Jewish leaders, and the wider world. And just like that, a journey that began 3.5 years ago in Galilee came to a sudden anticlimax end today, right here in Jerusalem. Is this another case of false Messiah? One like many others who have risen before, promised deliverance, but delivered on none of their promises? In this vast meeting point of cultures, held together by the hope and promise of a Messiah, one thing can be certain. Another claimed deliverer will arise, and Rome will act, and this time it will act forcefully. Until then, life continues with only two constants: taxes and death. Reporting for BBN, I am Pekuzi.
One way of looking at life is that it is a chain of transitions. You're either going through a transition, are coming from a transition, or are going to a transition. How you handle each of these transitions determines whether you will be successful or not. Turns out in life that everybody navigates transitions and ends up somewhere. There are two ways to navigate transitions in life. You transition either on panic or on purpose. Only one of these, and that is transitioning on purpose, will get you to a place of success and significance. The other will get you somewhere, or let's just say it could get you anywhere. Simply, what I'm trying to say is this: how we navigate the transitions determines where we end up and how you arrive. At tip-top transitions, we get it. Transitions can be stressful, paralyzing, and can even make you feel stuck. We know this because of decades of work we have done with individuals and institutions navigating challenging transitions like you. We want to work with you. We want to support you to remove the panic and the guesswork of transition and bring you to a point where you can leverage true and tested tools and strategies that will help you navigate your transitions without losing your vision, compromising your values, or losing your voice, so that you can be able to go through your transitions in a way that will bring you to a place of success and significance. Don't just end up somewhere in life, end up somewhere on purpose. To help us understand the events of the day from a medical point of view, I'm pleased to bring to the show physician and specifically trauma expert, Dr. Tabibu. Dr. Tabibu, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So first things first, whether you're a believer in what he used to teach or you are not a believer, one thing that has stood out amongst the very many other moving pieces of the day is just how fast Jesus has died. And the question that is still lingering in the minds of many is he truly dead? From a medical point of view, is he dead?
And a very, very substantial question, so to speak. For us to be able to understand it, I'll take you through what actually leads to death when a person is crucified on a cross. The first reason will be something known as hypovolemia shock. In essence, or in a layman language, is that the body goes into shock because of the rapid nature of the heart constantly beating, either due to the position of this victim on the cross or because of other reasons. This tends to lead an accumulation of water around the heart, which is trying to work excessively to be able to restore order within the body because the body is undergoing shock. So this was actually confirmed by the soldiers actually thrusting their spear or sword, so to speak, in the rib cages of these individuals, that we saw a mixture of blood and water coming out. This is because of the shock that he had gone through or because of the accumulation of water around the heart region, which is known as pericardial effusion. Second reason that could be able.
Sorry to interrupt you, Dr. So the flow of water and blood is not just a common ordinary wound. It's actually, from a medical point of view, confirmatory of death.
Yes, it is especially when it comes around the heart region. It means that the cage that covers the heart has been thrust to release that particular water. And it's a zero chance that you'd survive once, of course, your heart has been touched, especially with a sharp object in the nature of a sword.
Okay, and then you're saying to the second thing that happens during crucifixion that leads to death. Please continue.
Oh, precisely. The second reason that could also attribute to death on the cross will be because of lack of oxygen in the body. In medical terms, we refer to it as asphyxiation. As you know, for you to be able to breathe, you require your rib cages to move up and down for you to be able to breathe with ease. But you'd agree with me that this person have their hands and their feet both fixed in one particular place with nails, so to speak. Hence, they don't have the luxury to breathe as comfortably as me and you. They in turn have to raise their bodies in support, to be supported by their hands, and also use their feet to enable them take in the oxygen that they require and breathe out. And in due course and in due time, this leads to exhaustion that they barely can be able to have the strength to raise their bodies to be able to breathe. Hence, they cut off or they strangle the body of the vital oxygen that is required, leading to collapse and ultimately death. So these are the two main reasons. Could either be because of this hypovolemic shock or because of asphyxiation or lack of oxygen within the body.
Oh, the cruelty of the Romans is just epic. Now, these two reasons you've given us, are they the only one? Or if you look at the entire incidents, and quite frankly, all of us are trying to put our head around it because it's happened really quickly. From a medical point of view, could there have been other exacerbating or accelerating factors that might have contributed to this death?
Oh, precisely. From the history and probably some of the records that have been seen floating around within the medical circles, we are told that this man went through quite a devastating experience. To begin with, we are told that this 33-year-old son of a carpenter actually walked in a garden and he seemed to be quite disturbed. He has high levels of anxiety within himself of unimaginable realms, because it actually leads him to start perspiring blood, a condition that is known as hematidrosis, so to speak, which comes only about when a person has high levels of anxiety. So it could be something that he was really undergoing that was leading to this particular anguish. So the anguish begins right from that particular point and basis, but the amount of blood that he was perspiring or sweating, so to speak, cannot actually be attributed to ultimate death, because it's a case that is common, especially with people of high levels of anxiety. Apart from that...
So if I hear you correctly, Dr. Tabib, what you're saying is prior to his arrest, you have information that is indicating he had experienced extremely elevated levels of stress that had led him to perspire sweat in the condition, again, you call it hematidrosis.
Exactly.
This was not severe enough to kill him, but was already an indicator that whatever else was to follow, he was walking into it with already diminished physical capacity. Is that correct?
That's the point that you've clearly emphasized, and it's true.
Okay. Which other factors are you considering or looking at as a medic?
Also, we are looking at the physical strain that he went through. He's being frog marched, or he's being jumped from one jurisdiction to another. First, he's being taken to Herod. Then he's been taken to Pilate, back to Herod, back to Pilate. This to and fro journey actually cost him a lot of exhaustion physically, because you will agree with me that these two places were not just a doorway or a fence away. They were quite a long distance and journey that he had to travel. And being a criminal, I believe that he wasn't accrued special means of transport like a donkey or anything. He had to set it on foot. Physically, he was being abused. He was being beaten. Insults were being hurled at him. So already he's being put through these motions of both physical, psychological trauma of unimaginable thought. He's then taken over to Pilate, where he has something that is known as scourging by the Romans, which is one of the most devastating experiences I've witnessed as a trauma doctor that cannot really want anybody to go through. Because, as you know, the Romans really used to torture people in they tortured people in a very bad manner. So he's actually stripped off naked. They tie his hands and the wrists onto a post. After that, they unleash a whip. And it's not just an ordinary whip. This whip had pieces of metal. It had thongs of leather. It also had... After this, he's actually marched to Pilate for a thorough beating, so to speak. And it was not just an ordinary beating. We all know, we all are aware of what a beating by the Romans people actually entails. And he really took it, and it was such a sight to behold, because first of all, they actually stripped him naked, tied his hands on posts, and came up with their weapon that they were going to use upon this man. And it was not just any ordinary weapon. It was specifically the Roman lash. And we all know that this lash has got pieces of metal. It has got pieces of bones laced on it and thongs of leather. So that by the time one lash lands on your body, it just doesn't land and comes back empty-handed. It tears with it some pieces of flesh from you as it comes along with flesh and blood. And I'm told that you receive these beatings not by one, but at least two soldiers minimum who are really working on him, beating him from the back of the head all the way up to the sole of the feet. And just to put it into perspective, one lash from this particular weapon, for you to be able to repair the kind of damage that takes, it will take you approximately 20 stitches to be able to fix one lash. And I'm told he had probably 39, was it 39 or so lashes that he received?
Yeah, the Roman rule is that the corporal punishment, when you're given the full detail with the flagellum, you get 39 lashes. So that's, if you do the math, that's a minimum of 780 stitches needed to just fix this damage. It's bizarre.
Yes. Apart from the stitching and apart from the bleeding that would come from this particular beating, you should also appreciate the fact that nerves were involved, blood was oozing, and the amount of neurotic and nerve pains that he was receiving was quite excruciating. And as if they were not satisfied with the work they did, they went and brought something that is known as a crown of thorns. And these were not just ordinary thorns. One thorn was approximately 1.5 to 2 inches long, and it was thrust into his head. And for it to be secured properly, they had to use either a reed or a stick to beat it so that it can be able to be fixed properly. That means that actually these 1.5 to 2 inches thorns penetrated part of his skull, leading to not only bleeding, but also intracranial pressure within this gentleman. So right from...
So Dr. Tabibu, what I hear you painting from medical pictures, a very gruesome idea that way before this individual arrived at the cross earlier this afternoon, from a medical point of view, the trauma and the injuries he had already suffered prior to the crucifixion were substantial enough to land him in your trauma care.
Yes, and probably stay with us for the next 1 or so months trying to fix it.
Wow. So when you couple all of that with the weight of the uneven cross with all its splinters, it makes a lot of sense about the strain. Allow me to ask you, though, one more thing, is the speed of the death. So this is not the first crucifixion we have seen. We really pray that the Roman rule will end and we'll be able to have this as the last. But in previous crucifixions, the death has occurred sooner. Okay, has occurred later. This one has occurred quite soon. Do you think only the trauma you have described and the wounding you have described accounts for the speed of death, or is there something more to this?
Yes, I appreciate the fact that he really went through a devastating time, and the torture and the trauma that he had was quite enormous. But we should also appreciate that he was a very robust gentleman. 33 years, he was studious. Most of his traveling, he used to journey on the foot, so he had kept his body in a very nice way. And we as doctors have seen worse than that. We've seen people who are, for instance, traumatized and tortured with a shark, losing profuse amounts of blood, but still pulling through. We've seen people attacked by bears or gorillas or surrounded by lions and with even worse injuries, but who are being able to pull through. So when I look at it, there's more to his cause of death other than just the physical trauma. Because even at the cross itself, I still see him, despite all that, noticing his mother and speaking to him, noticing his disciple and giving instructions to him. I still see him take time to speak to one of the thieves on the cross and giving him some assurance, meaning that he was still very lucid. His mind was still in control over most of the thing, and physically, even if he was drained and tired, he was still studious. So dying in a couple of hours still cannot be justified with what he went through. So medically speaking, there's something more to it than just the physical and the mental torture that he went. As a physician, I'd say that literally this gentleman just probably gave up his life.
Tabibu, something tells me that those words you've just said will probably be historic or epic. Only time will tell. But I think it makes a good ending point for today, that probably what he did was he just gave up his life. The medicine alone cannot account for his death. Once again, thank you for making time to share your expertise and perspective on this particular developing story. We do appreciate for your time. So for those who are staying with us, we're just covering the events that have unfolded in less than 24 hours about the arrest, prosecution, and death of Jesus of Nazareth. Do stay with us. Coming up soon is a piece of music and poetry to help us put in perspective everything that has happened. Until next time, do stay with a BBN.
What do you know about love? Is it a feeling you can't get enough? Or that person that you think of when you're needing attention? Is it stronger than the winds that blow? Are you willing to die to let another grow? Do you know about love? Is it plain old affection? There's nothing left to feel no more. What you're looking for is a cross and a crown of thorns. What What you don't understand, love's other name is sacrifice. 'Cause there's nothing left to feel no more. Emotions are temporary, and our feelings leave little room for mercy. 'Cause when you're done, you're done. When you want someone better, have what you're demanding. See how we've messed up relationships. True love's the reality, that life's about discomfort. But we don't know what love is till we've held his hands and felt the depths of his scars. There's nothing left to feel no more. What you're looking for is a cross and a crown of thorns. What you don't understand, love's other name is sacrifice. No, there's no need to cry over what doesn't seem right. Take a step to love without reservations. 'Cause when he died, only you crossed his mind. Did I mention love's other name is sacrifice? How deep the Father's love for us, how vast beyond all measure, that he should give his only Son to make a wretched strength.